Hey guys, Spanners here. You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. It's time for some F1 news now we've landed back in the United Kingdom. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I, of course, have landed back in England. Matt Trumpets is back in Brooklyn. We're also joined by Antonia today, and we've got loads of news. The big news is that somehow Flavio returned. Jack Doohan is out, but why? Colapinto is in for the next few races, apparently. But is this a genie that can't be put back in the bottle? It also looks like, and I don't want to say all this dodgy stuff going on at Alpine, but it looks like there's some dodgy stuff going on at Alpine. There's also fresh Sergio Perez contract rumours, and we have the first serious potential new FIA president. And I'm also going to answer some of the huge amounts of feedback that we had from the last episode. I was genuinely blindsided by the reaction to the last episode. And I normally have a pretty good read of what the internet as a whole is saying. But once I hung up and published on Sunday, I did fall a couple of days behind the narrative. I was just chilling, and then I kept seeing these messages and these social media posts coming up, and I was surprised by the weight and strongness of the comments. And I think this is a really, really significant moment for Formula One, how we talk about Formula One and how we watch and judge Formula One. So, of course, we'll be talking about the new interpretation of racing rules and how that will affect Imola. We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind support of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first-ish. Well, I'm joined in the shed by Matt. Trumpets. Matt, you're so far away.
I know. It's so strange. We've been so close together. We've been living in each other's back pocket. And now you're just a tiny little...
You're just there. You're on the screen. I can't reach out. Oh, did you just do the crushing your head thing? I love that.
I did.
You sit there. I'm crushing your head. And we're also joined by Antonia Rankin. Hello, Antonia.
I feel like I'm intruding with you. Should I give you guys 5 minutes alone?
No, we've had 2 weeks together. Please intrude and tell me what you think about what is going on at Alpine. I would say there's 5 distinct things that are happening, Antonia, like Colapinto, Flavio Briatore, Jack Doohan, the Ollie Oakes and his brother saga, plus the Sergio Perez stuff. So what of that is jumping out at you?
Oh, you know what? There's always something controversial regarding finances and money with someone in F1. It's not new. Yes, it's still controversial. It's still a big deal that needs to be investigated a little bit more. Yawn, I don't really mind. It doesn't affect the sport anymore because now we've got Briatore, who was previously banned from F1 for cheating.
Yep.
And I think that's really interesting.
Go on then. Well, you weren't around. You weren't watching F1 at the time. But what have you read from the ancient texts about what happened with Flavio?
Okay, let me set the scene.
Yeah, do it.
So the year is 2008. I'm 5 years old. I haven't got a clue what's going on.
Shut up!
You're welcome. And all of a sudden, Nelson Piquet Jr. puts his car into the barrier during the Singapore Grand Prix. It soon turns out after Renault then replaced him mid-season the following year, it was all on purpose. He was told to deliberately crash by Briatore in order to help Alonso get points. Alonso did go on to win the Singapore Grand Prix. This was directly at the detriment to Felipe Massa, who did not win the championship in 2008. Lewis Hamilton did, but Massa was behind by just 1 point. So if Massa had won that race, he feasibly would have won the championship. This all came out. It turns out that there were a couple of team members at Renault who made this all happen. They got permanently banned from F1, as did Renault, but these were later overturned, and now Briatore is back.
Yeah, but let's be clear here. If wishes were kisses, I'd have gone to more Spice Girls concerts as a young man. It wasn't a guarantee that Massa was going to go on and win that race. Of course, the fuel hose you got stuck on. Oh, we got more.
I think that's besides the point. He didn't need to win the race. He needed to get one more point. And given the circumstances with the safety car, where at the time you weren't allowed to pit during the safety car, the pit lane was closed. You also were allowed to refuel during pit stops. So by staying out, the cars had high tire degradation and poor grip. They had low fuel, so they were having to conserve. And Alonso, having already pitted, had a huge advantage. It cannot be overstated the extent to which this helped Fernando Alonso. So I think Felipe Massa and his little lawsuit are going to be very unimpressed to see Briatore back.
No, I think a lot of people of my generation are also very unimpressed to see Briatore back. Now, they definitely went in hard on the Drive to Survive episode, and I did catch some younger fans and some younger content creators going, oh, look, it's lovable Uncle Flavio. And all the old sweats going, whoa, my goodness. But it can tell you like how much a narrative can be set and attempted, and they've definitely attempted to paint him in a better picture, but ordering a young driver, and this isn't allegedly, by the way, so I don't think you need to say allegedly, but yeah, ordering a young driver to crash a Formula One car on purpose, that life ban should have held, surely.
Mind you, and replacing him mid-season the following year, and he never really had a Formula One career after this. Now, we know that this is absolutely true. There's evidence on the radio. They've all confessed to it. But also, it's really interesting. I believe it was the formation lap or in qualifying, they practiced this crash. So Nelson Piquet Jr. spun the car and he came on the radio and went, was that all right?
Are you sure that happened, Antonia? Are you sure that wasn't some Mandela effect?
This is the thing. There's a lot of Mandela effects in F1, isn't
I'm going to divert.
Alonso is always at the middle.
I know.
Of it.
I'm going to divert slightly. So yes, all this happened. They practiced it. They did it. They deliberately told a driver to crash. And I think there's been other attempts to have a crash to deliberately cause a safety car in F1. I get yelled at. So
Rosberg.
I've been yelled at enough.
Schumacher.
Oh yeah, Rosberg for the yellow flags for sure. Schumacher,
yep.
Raskas at Monaco as well. There's other ones, but again, I've been yelled at enough this last week. However, I want to just briefly divert to one of your TikToks, Antonia, because you are a TikToker, and you did a mind-blowing one, which I hope isn't true, about a Mandela effect. So Mandela effect is where something has breached the public consciousness, but it didn't happen, or it happened in a different way. So there's a huge part of the population, apparently, that thought that Nelson Mandela had died like 20 years before he actually did.
Is that why it's called that?
I think that's why it's called that. And people are like, is Mandela not already dead? And yeah. So go on, tell us the Mandela effect that has occurred.
Okay, right. Everyone think in your head an Alonso quote that's really famous. You can fill in the gap. I knew he would break. ...
Because he's got a wife and a kids, and he's soft, and he's got a picture of his wife and kids on the dashboard, and he cries every time he does an overtaking maneuver, and that's why Alonso overtook Schumacher at 130R.
That's verbatim, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
That's exactly what he said. No, he said the start of that quote was right. Everyone seems to have heard this quote. I knew Schumacher would break because he has a wife and 2 kids at home, but it didn't sit right with a lot of people, myself included.
I've quoted it.
I know everyone has. And especially with Verstappen having a child, there's been this quote thrown around a lot, right? Because is he going to be breaking early now? Anyway, long story short, there is very, very little evidence to suggest that Alonso ever said it, even though there is a video where you can hear him saying those exact words. I knew he would break because he has a wife and kids at home. There is an interview a few years later where he says something similar, but there's no audio, there's no video of that interview that I could find. So there is nothing to suggest that he ever said anything like that, which is wild.
It's just such a lesson to content creators, because I was just in my head, like I had heard it myself. And then I think I'd convinced myself, I heard it at the time. And then I've said it everywhere. I've said it on TikTok. I've said it on The Ringer. I've said it on here. Oh, thank you for highlighting that, because it is a lesson to kind of go, do I actually know that thing has been said? So back to Alpine. And we're going to go to Matt here. So Antonia has highlighted the Briatore thing as kind of one of the big stories, which is, he's involved in the investment, he's a consultant, and now, oh look, all of a sudden there's a gap in the market, and he's the team principal again. Now, I don't believe in damning someone forever. I believe in redemption arcs, But as far as I know, Flavio Briatore has not come on the TV and gone, remember when I made that kid deliberately bin it into the wall? My bad. Looking back, that was lame and I shouldn't have done that. As far as I know, he hasn't done that. I think so. And I don't think that's his style.
No, it's definitely not his style. And you would expect at this point, at least, that might not have been a great life choice. But it is what it is. The situation we have is the one that we find ourselves in. And the amazing thing is that the timing of the Oaks departure with the Colapinto replacing Doohan made everybody more or less come to the same conclusion that turned out to be incorrect. For me, this is the interesting lesson, is you would expect that Briatore had asked Oaks to do this and that he had put up some kind of a fuss, that there was some sort of reason there was some sort of internal disagreement, and he chose for personal reasons. And now let's admit that a lot of people have used the words personal reasons to mean lots of other things aside from personal reasons. And that so he's departed the team and now Briatore's in charge, which is really what Luca Di Meo, who's created this whole mess with Alpine to begin with, has wanted. He wanted Briatore back to drive up the value, to make money for the team, and then probably to oversee the sales of the team to some new owners. And so it was really a surprise to me to find out that Oaks had a real reason for resigning that had nothing to do with either Doohan or Colapinto, or frankly, Alpine.
I'm going to take a different standpoint slightly, which is Oliver Oaks absolutely needed to resign given the circumstances that he and his family have found themselves in. I don't think anyone can challenge them.
Which are? And I think let's use allegedly.
I was just going to, there's going to be a lot of allegedly.
has been reported as. It's fine.
There's some financial money moving going on between himself, the Mazepin family. There's a lot of big names involved in this. And the long story short is they didn't know, let's be honest, they won't have known that this was going to break as front page news until a few days before it happened. So in my opinion, what went down behind the scenes is Oliver Oaks found out a few days before the news broke. He went to Alpine, told them, they mutually agreed, because it's very unusual to see a relatively new team principal resign with immediate effect and the team accept that. So they must have mutually agreed that it was best for him to step down. And then with only a few days notice, they've got this huge announcement coming with the drivers that had already been scheduled, because they would have decided that a week or so before at least. They wouldn't have had anyone else to appoint as team principal really at arm's reach. They went for the least objectionable option.
How convenient. The least objectionable.
Exactly.
For them.
Okay, Matt, I'm gonna argue on this is a bit convenient side.
No, I think Matt's about to agree with you.
Okay.
You know me, I'm all about the facts. I'm all about the data. I hate to state any assumption as a fact, but I do love to engage in a bit of completely wild speculation. Just to be clear, for those who are listening who haven't followed the story, Oliver Oaks' baby brother got arrested with a large amount of cash for the crime of transferring criminal property. And that is what's been reported. That is factual. There's no speculation about that. His resignation is quite obviously, given his fiscal duties as team principal, related to that. He's either going to have to look after his brother or potentially, there's more in store, but we don't know about that. However, if I'm Briatore, I'm just going to put it out there, and I've already ordered a young driver to crash in order to get Alonso points and me more sponsors. And I really want to be team principal, but I can't quite be team principal because I did a bad thing a long time ago. I'm just saying phone calls are cheap. And police have tip lines. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Nothing more.
Okay.
Come on.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, no, how convenient. I'm just saying the timelines really match up. If you're Briatore and you've got a team principal who's backing the driver that you want to get rid of because you've got $30 million or something, I imagine. Carlos Slim money. So that's why the 30 million number comes to my head. But there's just this pesky kid in your way, this pesky Ollie Oaks. So obviously, that's a wild conspiracy, but I'm just like, that was a problem for Briatore that was suddenly removed, and he gets his driver, and he gets the money, and now he's the team principal. I think you at least have to be honest and go, oh, it kind of looks like that. And coincidences do happen, but I think it's okay to go, well, I mean, if it was a movie, it does kind of look like that. So the thing that arose my suspicion was just before I heard about the Ollie Oaks brother thing. We had Karun Chanduk, Sky Sports commentator, come on a podcast, I think the Sky podcast online, and did something I think a little out of character, which is say something is rotten. My feeling is something's rotten, and I'm paraphrasing, at Alpine. And I went, ooh, that's not a very Karun Chanduk kind of take. He's normally very political. He's a really kind of pro-mainstream broadcaster. And I understand mainstream broadcasting, believe it or not, kids. So you have to behave differently in mainstream broadcasting. For him to come out on a Sky podcast and say something's rotten behind there, I think they knew. I think the media knew and were perhaps embargoed or were playing it smart. I think they knew ahead of time that Oaks was going to go. And in fact, you said that, Antonia. You said you reckoned it was a couple of days lag. The plot thickens. It all lines up. Can we get one of those chalkboards and red string and little pins?
There's nothing like middle-aged men and gossip, is there? You'll pretend not to like it, but when it comes down to speculating, you're like, oh, Antonia, let me give my opinions.
Antonia, I'm a horrible gossip in real life as well.
I can tell.
I have to I've had to go, I've heard something I shouldn't tell you. You'll never guess what Sandra just said to me. But yeah, obviously that's speculation. I think, as an observer, I think I'm speaking for a lot of people looking at that timeline and going, awfully convenient for Briatore that he gets his driver and he gets that job and he's back. And I think the business people won't mind if Briatore is bringing money in. I think it still raises massive question marks about what Alpine is. So you look at all of that stuff going on. Was it a potential overtake by is it Hitachi? Was that the Ollie Oaks company that he was High Tech. Yeah. But also he's linked to Mazepin money. So that's Ukraine. And and then Briatore's coming in with whoever he's involved with. Carlos Slim is involved in it. Like, oh my goodness, like this is a TV program. This is like Yellowstone, but in Formula One. This is Game of Thrones.
Could you be referring to Drive to Survive? Could that be what you're trying to do? Oh, right,
maybe. If Drive to Survive don't do like
have a field day, mate.
Yeah, but wow. I mean, the drama's incredible.
It is, and I think in a way, in this generation of F1, we do something which people haven't really done in the sport before, which is focus a lot on ethics. We're so drilled down into, well, he cheated. It's not right that he's back.
People cheat.
I agree. I think that absolutely has standing. But the reality is there'll be a spotlight on him more than ever. He won't be able to put a toe out of line because everyone will hound him. And it's a matter of money, as is every sport, right? So there's a lot of stuff about, well, that's not right. That's not fair. We hear it a lot with the drivers. Like, for example, with Jack Doohan being replaced, there's a lot of discourse as to whether he was given enough of an opportunity.
And what do you think about that, Antonia?
Honestly, I don't think it's my place to sit and go, oh, that's not fair. Poor Jack.
Well, it isn't fair. You can say
no, but it isn't. But we have to be realistic about how the sport works. He wasn't doing well for the team. Colapinto, they know, has experience in an F1 car.
Oaks was saying he was doing well and was coming on and was giving good feedback.
And where is Oaks now?
I don't know.
And where is he now?
Alive? I think Ollie Oaks is alive, right? We have had...
The rumor is he's in Dubai.
Have we had proof of life? Have we? I want Ollie Oaks with a newspaper with today's date saying, hi, I'm alive. But yeah, Jack Doohan. Matt.
Yeah, it's very simple. No, he was not given enough time to show what he was worth and what he could bring to the team. Not even close. And in fact, I said this back when this first happened, when Doohan substituted for Ocon in the last race of the year. I said, this is just a way to get him out of that seat quicker because they got somebody who's coming in with more money. And we all thought it was Colapinto, and it will be. But now it might not just be Colapinto. Now it might also be Perez. And this is why Briatore is there. And again, just the thing about Briatore, because everyone talks about cheating in Formula One, and it's true. There's probably not an entirely legal car on the grid. Everyone tries to go as far as they can without tripping over that line. But it's a bright red line. Ordering somebody to crash a car is fundamentally a categorically different thing than the normal everyday cheating that happens in Formula One. And that's the point I wanted to make.
I've just had a realization, and I don't think I can keep it in, but I'm going to have to. I've had a Perez realization.
Uh-huh.
I have.
What's that?
I'm excited and scared, and I think I'm right. But Antonia, go on, bury the lead.
What? No, don't tell us.
All right, fine, I will. Fine. But did you see the comments that Colapinto has only got a 5-race deal?
Yeah.
Okay, so the big thing we're doing, pre-season, we said he's got a 5-race deal. That means he's got 6 races, including Abu Dhabi, 6 races to attract sponsors and do whatever. And my personal belief is that was family money that was funding that, and then they were hoping they would attract more, or that he would have a miracle race or have a Colapinto style thing, and then he'd attract more money. Alpine have said that Colapinto only has a 5-race contract. And I had not linked that to the rumours about Sergio Perez, because 5 races takes us to Imola, Monaco, Spanish Grand Prix, Canadian Grand Prix, Austrian Grand Prix. That gives Perez many races to then be back for the Mexican Grand Prix. I'm thinking about this all on the fly, but Perez is going to be racing at the Mexican Grand Prix again.
There's so many jumps in what you just said.
Oh my God, did I just... I'm calling it. Perez is going to be driving at Mexico.
Okay, Grandad. No, you go back to bed.
Oh no, here we go.
I mean,
chaos.
Cool young uncle, go back to bed. Not Grandad. Come on, have mercy, Antonia. Have mercy.
No, thank you. So what I think is I would be very disappointed to see Perez back. I know that directly goes against the opinions of many people. I think he was given so many opportunities in F1. I understand that Red Bull probably wasn't representative of where he's at. But one thing to bear in mind is the importance of mentality in F1. He might, when he first got into that Red Bull, have still been the excellent driver that we knew him to be. But after season of him being beaten by Max, pressure from Red Bull, I don't think he would be able to get back into any F1 car. Spanish, shut up! You're so quiet, but you're so loud.
I was only miming my discontent.
Let me talk. I think it is incredibly unlikely for Perez to get into that Alpine and do a great job. I think that's the bottom line. I understand why they would want to give him the opportunity. I don't think it would work well.
I had thought this is interesting because Perez was linked to Cadillac too. So my first thought upon seeing this rumor was that he's simply trying to make Cadillac jealous because he didn't announce him at Miami. And that's sort of the rumor that was put out there. But then I began to think about it and I'm like, well, the car itself isn't terrible. It's improving with David Sanchez running the show. And they're going to have Mercedes engines next year. And if you ask me right now as a driver, which car I'd rather drive next year, I'd much rather drive whatever Alpine turns into with the Mercedes engine than a brand new Cadillac team with a Ferrari in the back. I'm suddenly thinking that there may be some meat on these Perez rumor bones to Alpine. Plus, if he can get his money up, if he can outbid Colapinto for the seat, it's going to be his, and he won't be what he was in his glory years. But I guarantee you, he will do probably a better job than either of the rookies.
I've got more.
I think we're really stating the obvious, to be honest. I think, who would you rather race for? The brand new team who will probably not be anywhere near the front of the grid for at least a few years, or Alpine, who have been in the sport for a very long time and at least have one leg to stand on? No, of course he would choose Alpine. There are opportunities with Cadillac. Yes, it's exciting. Yes, Alpine are somewhat of a sure thing. They're guaranteed, if he drives well, to be a midfield car. Like you said, though, Matt, I just don't think he'll be where they need him to be. It's like Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari. Full stop.
I think, right, with the Mexico contract, we were all saying that was a surefire sign that he was signing for Cadillac. But what if that actual Mexico contract had even more confidence that not only would it be good for the next 3 years, 26, 27, 28, but they knew that it was also going to be good for this year. Remember, this is Perez's backer that is giving money to Colapinto. So I think they can kind of pick and choose. It could even be a NASCAR kind of thing where they say, right, Perez is back for Mexico only. Well, like, we could do that.
I think let's not underestimate, like you said, the importance of sponsorship money, the market that Perez brings. We talked about it when he was at Red Bull. Why did Red Bull keep Perez so long? He had a huge amount of money behind him.
Yeah, that's true.
So to a team like Alpine, that kind of sway and that kind of audience would be huge for them. But as Red Bull found, there's only a certain extent where money can outweigh results, which also mean money. So there's a scale there. And I would be very surprised if after 5 races, for example, those scales still tip in his honor.
All right, Matt. Where does that leave us, Matt? What is Alpine?
Right now, it's a Pierre Gasly sponsor attracting machine with the second seat that's for sale in 5 race increments. And it's looking positive to get a really really wealthy person in the second seat for next season, because they have a good technical director in David Sanchez, and they have what is rumored to be the power unit for 2026, when we know it's all going to be a bit higgledy-piggledy anyway.
But by then, Matt, we will have a brand new FIA president, which will surely rock the boat.
Or it'll be the same one we already have, which will also rock the boat, but just in a different direction.
I'm kind of bored of the boat rocking. I feel sick.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Also,
this is a huge body, the FIA. I think there's a lot of people whose heads are very stuck in the sand purely with F1. Motorsports is so much more than F1. There's GTs, there's TCRs, there's rallies, all of which come under the FIA. There's so much that the president of the FIA oversees, and his impact on the sport cannot be overstated. He's an incredibly important, not just figurehead, but involved member. So for a huge proportion of the fan base to lack trust in the FIA, to not believe in their consistency, to not believe in their leadership, their decisions, their vision for the future of our sport, it's a real issue. And they're not understanding how much damage is being done.
So what's the solution then? Because we have rumours that it might be someone with no skin in the F1 game, and definitely not the dad of a current F1 driver, Matt, is that Carlos Sainz Sr. is a legitimate candidate for the FIA presidency. That's the first name I've heard where I've kind of gone, that might work.
There's actually a couple. The problem for anyone taking on the incumbent president is the rules themselves vastly favor the incumbent. So I did a little read down, but you need to, it's not just enough to say, I'm going to run. It's not just enough to have money and say, I'm going to run a campaign and I'm going to have campaign materials and I'm going to reach out to people to try and get them to vote for me. Understanding that there are the ASNs that make up the World Motorsport Council that have votes. But also, I have discovered mobility clubs as well have votes, and they're not always the same thing. So some countries have more split potential votings than others. They're all the same thing. So you have a more concentrated amount of votes you can get from this. But you also have to have a list of people who support you. And I'm going to go through this real quick. President of the Senate, Deputy President for Automobile, Mobility and Tourism, Deputy President for Sport. Now, that sounds complicated enough to get these people to agree to support you. You also have to have 7 vice presidents of the FIA for Sport. And there are regional qualifications on all of these. Middle East and North Africa, Africa, with some exceptions, North America, South America, Asia Pacific, plus 2 vice presidents from Europe. If you cannot put those names together, you literally cannot win. And so we've got Carlos Sainz, World Rally multiple champion, Dakar winner, I believe. Did he have his own his own Extreme E team? I don't know. He's done lots of things. He knows lots of people. Very popular person. He might be able to put that list together. But at the same time, who did we see recently? We haven't seen in ages. Luca Di Montezemolo from Ferrari back in the day suddenly showed up in the paddock. Who else do we have? We have Robert Reed, deputy president of the sport of FIA, who resigned over MBS and the way he was handling the new non-disclosure agreements. saying that it was unethical. There are several people floating around. And what do these people all have in common? They're European. They come from Europe, where the majority of Formula One races still happen. Now, I've seen the point being made that the mobility clubs will not really care about Formula One. And they just care about, are we getting our funding to make roads safer, to make cars safer, to improve things for everybody who uses mixed transportation system. And I get that viewpoint. But if I was coming from the F1 point of view, I'd be like, where do you think the FIA money comes from? It comes from exactly one source, F1. And if that gets killed, and that's what's on the chopping block with the way things are going right now, then you absolutely need to be considering this.
Oh, it's like the Pope all over again, isn't it? We're getting teased with all these candidates. I thought we were going to get a Filipino Pope. It would have been unbearable. But no, in swoops an American. It's probably going to happen again.
Yeah, we are the best.
A couple of things. With Carlos Sainz, I haven't been able to find anything to substantiate, anything to suggest that he's running other than rumor. He's a huge legend in the rally community. I've worked with him. He's a great guy, huge power within the industry.
Oh, hello. You can't let that just hang. Where?
Why?
You've worked with Carlos Sainz Sr.?
On the Dakar, yeah.
Oh, hello. Nice. Yeah. And was he all right? Did he seem like the sort of person who would be neutral, fair, governance?
He's very diplomatic and he's very experienced. Genuinely, if it's a rumor with like a good idea, to be honest. My issue with the FIA, as Matt has just explained, there are so many levels of approval that a president needs to attain before becoming the president of the FIA, irrespective of the court of popular opinion. My question that the FIA needs to answer is, why is the current president not being held to the same standard regularly as people looking to replace him? His position is not being reviewed. His opinions are not being questioned. And nothing is being done to make sure that the integrity of the organization stays at the level it should.
Well, this is exactly the Dave Richards Motorsport UK letter that he wrote, that MBS ran on these very specific promises that all seemed very good for the sport, but that once he was in charge, he began behaving in a way that was antithetical to what he said he wished to achieve, to the point where he's now, Motorsport UK is very seriously considering a lawsuit because they don't feel like the rules are being correctly followed. And that was in print. So that's nothing new there. But equally, the ASNs in Europe in particular are extremely unhappy about how things are being run. And that is, again, where the majority of your Formula One races take place. And if they go, then you don't have a Formula One anymore that's going to bring you money.
My issue is some of the comments being made publicly seem spiteful more than leadership communications and understandable professional publications. For example, the comment made about it's not Silverstone, it's the Qatar Airways British Grand Prix. Shut up. Just like, no, you're never going to win popularity points being that kind of person. It's almost like, I hate to say like, oh, the power has got into his head because that's such a cliche, but he needs to be held accountable to the same level that other people are. And I think that's irrefutable and you can't argue with that.
Thanks, guys. We are going to get now onto the racing rules stuff and some of the user feedback, some of the comments that we got on YouTube and my DMs and the emails. Oh my God, the emails after the Miami review, and me, Matt and Christina were in unison. We were sat there in the stands. We were at turn 2, and when Verstappen hit or forced off Perez, forced off Norris at turn 2. Honestly, we were just surrounded by people going, I don't believe it. Like, why? How is he getting away with that? What is going on? And then we went on the race review and I expressed that opinion. And I just went, yeah, I mean, Verstappen lost it a little bit in turn 1, which he later did to a much bigger effect against Piastri later on in the race. But he lost it a bit in turn one. Norris gets alongside, and then there seems to be some kind of moment. We haven't got the onboards still from Verstappen's car again. But does he lose it? Is he in control? Does he have a little bit of snap oversteer? Is he trying to force Norris wide a little bit? And it just seemed very, very obvious to me that should be a penalty. Now, I'm always going to give just my opinion and how I take, my take on that incident. So I completely stand by that. And if I had then looked at what was going online and reviewed it, I'm happy to come out and go, it wasn't quite how I saw it, or I've heard new evidence, I've heard new things from, maybe media that I didn't catch up on, and I've changed my mind. I haven't changed my mind. But what I have seen is that the mainstream media, so, people like on Sky and on F1 TV and things like The Race, all broadcasters and publications that I definitely respect. So I'm not going to go, they're cranks, they don't know what they're talking about. When I talked about missing a little bit of the internet drumbeat that was going on, I did not know that the mainstream media was saying that the turn 2 incident is similar to the rules where we talk about people being at the apex first. That never occurred to me. So when we were talking about the incident, I was thinking about, the Philpott lane system, people going side by side, and it's a flat out bend round to the left, and I think it's flat even on the right-hander to the right as well, the turn 4, and they're going through that, and Verstappen changes lanes somewhat dramatically, and Norris has to take avoiding action. I subsequently know that the likes of The Race, Palmer, Davison, all guys that I think are fantastic, applied the racing rules for the corners that we've been talking about. So the outside car must be ahead at the apex to be able to be entitled to room. The inside car should have the front axle to the wing mirror to be entitled to racing room. That all makes sense into like turn 1 in Miami, or into turn 3 into Village at Silverstone, a big braking zone, turn 8 at Circuit of the Americas. That all makes sense. Like, I don't love it, but I go, okay, the rules are there. They're all driving to those rules. It never even occurred to me that people would be applying these to flat out kinks. That's where I my disconnect from the people that I was talking to in the comments, because I was going like, are you mad? Like, what are you talking about? People were saying to me, read the rules, idiot. And okay, so now I know that the mainstream media are saying that all those overtaking rules apply to every single numbered turn. I did not know that in advance. So going forward, there are track maps that have the turns numbered. Imola, turn 1, is the right-hand kink just after the start-finish straight. The left-hand kink is not a numbered turn, so turn 2 is the left-hander, the first left-hander of the chicane. Turn 19, the final turn, is also on the start-finish straight, okay? Eau Rouge or Radion, they are named corners. You now have to go through all of the Formula One circuits coming up and find which corners are numbered corners. And now all of those, including all the ones at Saudi Arabia, if they keep these for next season, these are all numbered corners where the car, if they're ahead on the inside, can simply drive to the outside. And the internet is mad. I think mostly at me. But this redefines everything about how we're going to look at the racing rules going forward.
I think there's been a slam on of enforcing unarguable black and white rules, especially in the last couple of seasons, because of how many controversies the stewards and the FIA have faced when they've exploited grey areas.
And we asked for them. We did ask for...
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So if I'm honest, I don't see how anyone has a leg to stand on complaining about this now. We've got clear established rules. And actually, to be honest, it will encourage some intelligent racing. They're allowed to force the other wide on, like you said, a kink of a bend. The drivers are going to have some real circuit knowledge and intelligence. It's like how Max Verstappen, for example, everyone calls him a slimy driver in the UK, at least. He knows where the rules are, where the line is, and goes exactly to the line, for example, with being ahead at the apex. He's not breaking the rules. He's just exploiting them to his advantage. And I think encouraging more of this kind of thing. We can't pretend like Max's racing hasn't brought us endless entertainment.
Oh no, of course.
In the past few years, I think it will make racing more intelligent. I think it will be a bit more exciting. Yeah, it will encourage some fan rivalries as well. And like you said, it's what we asked for. Why are we complaining?
No, okay. The very specific point of that is it's not my choice of rules, but I was reasonably happy with it into a braking zone, like turn one. The thing that really caught me out, Matt, was that it applies to the flat out zones. So that, never ever overtake at Spa after turn one. That whole rundown to Le Combe, that's not an overtaking zone anymore.
Well, what really bothers me about this is that having video of that opening turn one, turn two complex, and having watched it a few times, it's very clear that Norris was ahead of Max heading to turn two. And that to me makes Max the overtaking car coming into turn two. So the application of rules for Norris as being the overtaking car there, I don't see. I think that's incorrect. But what matters to me most is, especially with the lack of onboards, I actually have video of that incident, and I can sit there and roll it back and forth. And every time I can see in the approach to turn two, Max lights up his rear tires and loses the back end. And now, if you ask me, the rule says be driven in a fully controlled manner, particularly from entry to apex for the inside car. It was simply not. It was not. And I can see it on video. As not a professional driver, I don't understand how the stewards failed that test.
That's Matt. See, that's Matt Trumpets. So that's Matt at missapex.net for emails. He's the one that said it should be a penalty this time. I didn't say that.
I think there's been a lot of instances with dive bombing, knowing that they're not going to make the corner, because as long as they're ahead at the apex, it doesn't matter. We saw it at Saudi Arabia turn one. Piastri finally did the same thing that Verstappen always does, and it lit the world on fire. Neither of them were ever going to make that corner because they were both so desperate to be ahead that they braked too little, too late.
Which one? Which corner is this? Sorry, Antonia.
Turn one.
Miami.
No, Saudi.
No, at Saudi. Well, didn't. So in that one, Piastri was on the inside and did make the corner. Yes,
but if you look at the brake inputs, which is what I'm saying, the stewards have the ability to look. Oops, sorry, I just knocked my mic. Spanners hates when I do that, guys. He's going to tell me off later. Basically, the stewards can look at brake telemetry. They've got all of the data, right? So they can reasonably say, you did not brake enough to slow down the car enough, so you dive bombed. And this comes under the subsection of the rule that says, were you in full control of the car? No, you weren't really.
Okay, so my pushback on that would be that since he was in the inside car, apparently, this is awful. The front axle has to be up with the mirror of the car ahead on the inside car. So there's less onus on the inside car. It's a bit more lenient on the inside car. Once you are there, you own the corner. And the only requirement for being under control, it seems to me, is making the track. So in Saudi, he made the track. He stayed on track. I think he's okay under these bizarre rules.
Yes, but in essence, what I'm arguing is that he did the same thing that Max does, where he didn't brake enough so that he had enough speed into the corner to be ahead.
Yeah,
he should have braked more.
Yeah, in general, like why can't we just have it where you have to leave room and you can be side by side? Look at Alex Brundle's X feed or all of his content from Spa this weekend and showing all those sports cars going side by side up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon. It was magnificent.
Hamilton and Ocon in the Miami race. That should be the rule. Yeah, you can take them right to the edge, but they both left each other room, and it was some of the best racing we saw as a result. The goal is to make, they're making the goal to make more overtakes, but the goal should be to make better racing. And you do that by requiring both parties to leave a little bit of room for the other. Yeah, squeeze them to the edge of the track, no problem. Leave them no room at all, or just turn right into them because you can't. No, not acceptable.
And this is why we have to have a better way of establishing sportsman-like rules, right? Because you can't force a driver to not exploit every single little margin that you give them. That's what they're always going to do. They're always going to take every bit of mick that they
Yeah,
can.
you're right.
But I agree. I was at Brands Hatch last weekend watching a series called the McLaren Trophy. It's all McLaren Arturas. Awesome, right? They're all 17 years old. I saw some of the best battles in GT3s, mind you. They're big cars on a small track, completely clean. Not one bit of contact. We had a battle for P1. It was absolutely insane. And it was clean, and it was still entertaining without anyone being nasty.
And if a lot of those if a kid had like driven one of their competitors off into the gravel, you know, their dads would have come on and just clip them around the back of the ear, going, "You've just driven off Derek's lad. I'm going to have a pint."
Confirm that their dads are there.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a pint with Derek later, and you've just run him into the gravel, you little turnip. Yeah, I think here's my big question though. Before Miami, if I'd have sat here and said, okay, do you know what? I've accepted these racing rules. Yeah, outside car needs to be here. Inside car needs to be there. Right. If I'd have said, okay, but, you know, into turn 2 and 3, do those same rules apply? I think 100% of people would have gone, no, obviously not. No, we're talking about the braking zones, those corners. We're not talking about, you know, flowing left, right corners. We're not talking about corners that lead into each other and everyone's flat out. We're not talking about kinks like Imola. Everyone would have said, no, those rules don't apply in turn 2. And I think it's a huge amount of gaslighting to now retrospectively say that those rules clearly defined for heavy slowing corners apply to every single named kink. And that now, forever, in Formula One, every time you've got flowing sections of corners, Circuit of the Americas has got them. Circuit of the Americas has corners where you don't touch the brake. Every single corner where we're used to seeing cars racing side by side. 130R. We just talked about it. We're basically saying you can never, ever have those moments around 130R again. We'd have all said it was ridiculous. But now, because of this incident, we're saying that these rules now apply to every kink. It's shocking.
Let me preface this with a soft agree.
Okay, good. No, that's fair. That's fair.
The issue with establishing these rules is there is no way in a non-arbitrary way to say, okay, this counts as a corner, this counts as a kink, this counts as a braking zone. Does a lift off count as a brake? It depends where they do it, right? What if turn 2 is after a straight and then it's a sharp corner? Do the rules then apply to turn 2 of lap 1? It's so hard to black and white say the rules apply, the rules don't apply. So I think the easiest way in this situation was just to say it applies to every single corner on every single circuit. And I agree, it's not perfect, but there is no other way of doing this rather than specifying a list of all of the corners individually that count.
There's a much better way of doing it.
Specify the list of every single corner where those rules apply. Deal. I take it. I'll take that.
It's not how rules work,
from
though,
a
is
missed
it?
Apex point of view, I'm happy to go, because I think this will be annulled. There will definitely not be the case.
For sure. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. No, if someone runs someone off in turn 1 at Imola, which is on the start-finish straight, or turn 19, which is on the start-finish straight, and the inside car goes, well, I've got my nose slightly ahead, I'm just going to run you into the wall. That isn't going to hold water. It isn't going to work. So I'm happy at some point to go, let's look at the race ahead and say which corners we think these racing rules apply to.
I'm going to bring up the Russell Bottas incident in Imola. Russell was entirely justified to take Bottas all the way off onto the wet grass and drive him into the wall.
Do you know why? Do you know why that's wrong?
Why?
Because that's not a named kink. That kink isn't a named corner, which is surprising, right? I'd have thought if turn 1 just after the start-finish straight is a kink, is a named corner, I would have thought the right-hander before the left into the chicane, I would have thought that would be a named corner, but it isn't.
But if he was axle ahead in that kink, he had every right to go all the way to the edge of the track and drive Bottas off at 330 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
And the funniest thing about this, and this is how you know that Spanners is right. Do you know who agrees with you?
I know that hurts you.
Careful, man.
You know who agrees with you about this? Christian Horner even thinks these rules are.
Me and Christian.
I mean, come on. If he's going to say that, then you know some fixing needs
Christian
to happen.
Horner has criticised them again. Thank goodness me and Christian Horner aligned once again, reunited, and it feels so good. As someone who runs racing series and who has a iRacing series about to start in the next 2 weeks, we have a huge grid. We're going back to basics. It's going to be F3 on iRacing. I'm not allowed to announce the first track, but if you know me and you know iRacing, and you could guess which old F1 track that isn't
Stop
currently on
speaking
the
Spanish.
circuit.
You're about to give it away.
I was about to give it away, sorry. But yeah, if you know the tracks I like, basically we're going old school. We're going old school, F3, fixed setups. We're just pure racing. We've got a massive grid. We're going to have a feature race with a pit stop. We're going to have a reverse grid. And it's going to be a massive amount of fun. I think we've got 40 drivers or 45 drivers already registered. But if you want to get involved, email us feedback@missedapex.net or spanners@missedapex.net. Obviously, we do our karting, which is going to happen of July 5th. We're going to have a very casual Saturday on the weekend of Silverstone, where we're going to do a live show and a quiz. So we're going to do a live show like we did last year and the quiz, which worked amazingly in Miami. We had such a great time out there. But there will be sessions to book beforehand, so you can do time lapse around the Formula Fast track and see if you're faster than Spanners and Trumpets and the rest of the guys. See if you're faster than Antonia. See if Antonia can finish a karting event fully within her kart and not lying down on the track, passed out, unconscious.
I'll one up you. Let's see how quickly I can finish a massive bottle of wine whilst watching everyone else.
Nice.
See if you can beat me, guys.
I think
Real
that's
competition.
I think that's
I'll
a
sit
good
there with
plan.
a straw.
But one day I do want to run the old school competitions that we used to run, but karting has got so expensive in the UK right now. The biggest issue is going to be that people are going to expect to be able to drive to these new rules. And we've got to sit there and go, how do we manage a racing series where we've always had respectful rules, where you always leave room for something? And not only do I think that's the best way to go racing, the simplest way to go racing, it also leads to the best racing. I don't want my iRacing series that we're going to broadcast with Scott Stuffy Tuffy as our lead commentator. I don't want that to be a series of people having to push people off track. And then, in a big grid, someone is slightly ahead so they can push you off. So you have to lift, and then you lift, and then the cars behind you just ram into you. This isn't the racing I want. Is this, hand on heart, even if it's benefiting your driver, is this really the racing you want?
Kind of. I live for the drama.
You just want all the yelling afterwards.
I really enjoy yelling. I feel like, in the comments, you get those people always, and you can hear their voice where they go, actually.
Yeah, that's me.
You know what? It's just kind of fun to have the role reversal every now and again. It's like all of us when we're watching the F1 movie. How many times are we going to go, actually?
Oh, I can't wait.
It's fun. It's a nice little switch of positions. It makes me feel like I've taken some of the power back away from all of the comments.
Matt.
No, we don't want this. We want good racing. And I think the FI is mistaken in more overtakes for good racing. And this wouldn't be the first time that has happened. The good news is if you've got someone like Christian Horner, whose driver Max is very clearly benefited from it. And even Max himself says it makes the racing, quote, not natural. I don't think this is going to be a long-term rule in Formula One, and will probably be changed for next season.
Yep, probably changed for next season, like the pit lane overtaking rules, like where your tire can be on the exit of the...
We haven't even discussed the higher pit lane speed limits we might see too.
Okay, and we won't
all sorts of rules, all sorts of things are going to change next year.
And we won't on this episode. I think actually the 2026 rules, I've been getting questions in real life from people saying what on earth is going on with the 2026 rules right now. And there's concerns. I think, well, Matt, we could do that midweek if you want to jump on for a chat midweek.
I know a few things, yeah.
But what I would like to end the show on, I think we've got another 5 minutes here, is this thing with the Red Bull are protesting everything. So that's not news. That's not normal. So they protested George Russell. They think he went 0.1 over the speed limit in under the yellow flags, or waved his hand under the yellow flags, and he's not allowed to. But they are really pushing this tyre cooling issue.
They are. And the fun thing is that no matter how many times they have pushed it, to the point where Zach had a water bottle that said tire water on his desk in Miami to make the point of, well, look, if someone's going to make accusations, they should go through the process and not just back channel it through the news media. Nothing's wrong with the McLaren car other than it is exceedingly well designed and thought through to give it the maximum racing advantage. Now, where Red Bull's concerns have alighted is with the McLaren management of the rear tire. In particular, they look at thermal imagery of the tire and they don't understand why it's looking so symmetrically cool relative to their own tires. But if you listen to our tech show a couple of weeks ago, me and Summers had a little chat about this, and the answer is they've spent a lot of engineering know-how in the ducting underneath the brake drums. Now, you used to be able to just exhaust air out of the axle. Can't do that anymore. But if you look at the pictures of the ducting underneath that brake drum, then you would see that McLaren's is much more complex than any other teams. And in fact, if you'd been sitting with Summers and a Weatherspoons a couple of weeks before that, you've known about it even then. That's like he's 6 weeks ahead of. And just now we're starting to see stories about the brake duct. We're seeing stories in Auto, Motor und Sport. We're seeing them in Motorsport. We're seeing them in the race that they think now this is where it is. Well, yeah, that is where it is. They spent an enormous resource making it better. And now they're better, and they're better because they made a very good choice.
I will say, just be careful if you think that hanging out with Summers in a Weatherspoons is something that you would want. I would seek medical advice first. That is a trap that I don't want anyone to get lured into.
To be fair, his dad was there too.
Oh, his dad's great. Summers' dad is actually really great. So, okay,
yeah.
Fine. I've changed my mind. Let's all go and hang out with Summers in a Weatherspoons. It does mean going to the Isle of Wight, which means a ferry, but I don't think international laws apply there. So we can set up our own casino.
I like it.
I think
Antonia?
what Zach Brown's actions with his water bottle show is everyone's getting a little bit fed up of the whinging coming from within F1 teams.
Oh.
Frankly, it's because they know margins are so close that if they raise a complaint and it happens to get passed and raised and something changes, it would give them the edge. And the issue is there's almost been a reinforcing of this behavior because in the past, complaining and whinging has got Christian Horner a fairly long way. So can you blame him for continuing to do so, And Zach Brown, bless him, I said, bless him, he's a grown man. He's sat there getting very fed up of all these accusations being thrown around with the rise of Drive to Survive. There's a lot of sensationalism generally in our sport now, where people are throwing around a lot of big words and expecting something to happen. And I think there's going to come a point where everyone just goes, I've had enough, let's just race.
Christian Horner has played the referees, and that has been the ethos as well at Red Bull. 2021 is obviously a massive example. He's also happy to play the media. So he's been happy to go out there and say Lewis Hamilton was trying to murder, our driver. And that's, not a turn of phrase. He's happy to play the media. And now Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, Lando Norris, they've all made similar statements of we can do this and still be nice. Piastri hasn't made any of those statements, and he's not obliged to either. But they all seem quite nice. Stella, I'll rank them in niceness. I think Stella, Norris, Zach Brown, but they are all, I think, encumbered and bound by some kind of moral code that Red Bull aren't at all. And if you were a shareholder or a fan, which approach would you push on your favourite team?
I don't think it's that they're bound so much as that's the precedent that Max Verstappen and Christian Horner have set. Like I said, Verstappen very rarely breaks racing rules, but he exploits them, right, to the absolute limits of his capability, as does Christian Horner. It's not illegal to print out a photo that you think proves your point and sit with a little group of journalists. It's not illegal to say, well, he was trying to murder our driver. Actually, it might be. That might be defamation. Anyway, there's a lot of this kind of thing going around, and that's the tone that they've set for Red Bull, right? That's what they have. And McLaren, with such a rich history in the sport, etc., will have a different standard that they're held to. It's just the different way that the teams operate. Neither one is better than the other. Neither one is guaranteed to win more races than the other. But it's the precedent set by the front people in the teams.
But are they doing it, Matt?
No. Is McLaren doing some weird cheating thing with tire water or anything else? No. They have simply out-engineered the other teams. That's why they have an advantage. And it's why the other teams are trying to nerf that. And this is, I know we talk about Red Bull and, we could go back. I remember, was it Toto Wolff complaining about the flexi wings on the Red Bull going into Barcelona, and they put the dots on them and they do the visual stuff. And this is an old, one of the oldest tricks in F1 is to complain about somebody else's car as being illegal and get it investigated and get their toy taken away from them. What's generally been funny is that for all the attempts that have been made, especially on the McLaren in the last year or so, they have not hit their targets. They've hit unintended other targets and absolutely nerfed them. And that's why I'm looking forward to the front wing reset in Barcelona, because I'm very curious to see who's going to get caught out by it, but I really don't think it's going to be McLaren.
I agree, right? McLaren's spring to success in the last couple of seasons is suspicious, right? On paper, they've all of a sudden come up with a race-winning, championship-winning car. Except if you know a single thing about McLaren, it's not suspicious at all. They've just got a brand new wind tunnel on site that they didn't have before. Testing time for components has gone from a week to 10 minutes because they were sending parts off to Germany previously to the wind tunnel they had over there. It's actually not suspicious at all. It's completely understandable. Of course, their development has been accelerated. Of course, now with the right people that they have in the team, which they do, and the car and the drivers, it all comes together. So all of their success is solely down to them. They've got these incredibly developed cars with very well thought through aerodynamics, intelligent drivers, pretty good leadership right now. They have all of the ingredients for success.
But it would be way more fun if it turns out they were cheating.
It would, wouldn't it?
And there's a technical directive and a secret agreement.
A great TikTok video.
And then Red Bull come back. Yeah.
And you could look at, for example, the cooling in Miami. They said they did a lot of work on cooling. You remember Red Bull spending all that time working on their internal cooling and then being better? Well, McLaren has simply copied that, and they've done an excellent job. So now their aerodynamics are better at hot races. They have these brake ducts that, the general theory is somehow there's some sort of passive switch that when they're cold, you can make the tires hotter. And then when they get too hot, you can actually exhaust the heat and bring them back down. That's sort of the general, what we think is going on. There's no confirmation of that because, of course, there's no way to confirm it. So they've just simply done a better job all the way around. And it's on the other teams to catch them. And in fact, I'd even seen it speculated, I think in the AMUS article, that the Max's complaints about his braking might be Red Bull's first attempts to figure out what exactly is happening with the McLaren rear tires and to copy it. That's what you do. If you can't beat them, copy them.
You can't say AMUS, Matt. That's not what our
Auto, Motor und Sport.
Dankeschön. And Dankeschön to our panel, because I think we have come to our, we don't want to ever exceed an hour here on Missed Apex Podcast. That is a hard, unmovable limit. So if you want to support Missed Apex Podcast and say, yes, go on adventures, the number one way you can do that is to tell a couple of your friends. Like, you would not believe the effect of just going, right, Derek at work, when you watch F1, I then like to listen to what these idiots think and then disagree with them. Go and check out Missed Apex, and you always have to spell it because it sounds like mist, like M-I-S-T. You always have to say Missed Apex, M-I-S-S-E-D, Missed Apex. Go and follow them. Go and check out their podcast. You might not disagree with them. You might disagree with them, but they do get it out as quickly as they can, and they are broadly fun. And also, people rotate around the panel quickly enough that you don't get bored of them. And for example, even hosts will rotate. So for Monaco, I'm going to Chris's birthday party, and I'm going to watch Monaco in a bar in London. So we are going to have a stand-up crew. We're going to have Stuffy hosting. And I don't know, could we recruit an Antonia for a Monaco review?
Maybe. If Chris invites me, let me send him a message.
Oh, that means you've not been invited to his birthday.
I haven't heard about
that. Oh, no.
This is scandal.
Talk about drama. You've just created some drama there,
Spanish. Oh, my God.
I think you bust into that party and you just wreck it. Aren't
To
you
be fair,
you're gonna
I'm
be in
really
Holland.
bad with my messages at the moment.
Also,
I probably just haven't looked.
We know you're going back to the Netherlands as well, so that's probably.
I'm sorry. The
there you
allure
go.
of the stroopwafels overpowers the disallure of the Max Verstappen.
Well,
I kind of like him now, guys. I don't know. I kind of like Max.
That's allowed. We listen and we judge like a little, but not too much.
Guys, he says this, but then he'll send me an angry paragraph. I promise. I'll send you all screenshots.
Dear
He'll be
Antonia.
like, Antonia, you're never invited back.
Dear
Hashtag
Antonia.
Lewis for the win.
Dear Antonia, I hope this WhatsApp rant finds you well. No, in fact, I'm going to Facebook DM you. No.
I hope it finds you badly.
Well, seeing as you can't go to Chris's birthday party because you're away and you're not invited anyway, perhaps you and Stuffy could come and do a Monaco review with just some random American. Matt, he's the random American. But you should definitely go and check out Antonia's TikToks, because they are informative and wise. You have to search for Antonia.Rankin on TikTok.
Yes, good job. You did it.
Okay, good. Are we Instagramming? Do we Instagram?
We are Instagramming the same at, yes.
Okay, brilliant. And anything else? LinkedIn? Should we follow you on LinkedIn?
I don't know. You know what? I'm going to say something controversial because I know the audience. I hate LinkedIn. I don't like all these pompous people going, I'm thrilled to announce, and then like some life lessons that no one asked for or needed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Awful.
What I do is I put my daily routine up on LinkedIn, like every day, like 4 a.m, protein shake.
Do you wipe the banana peels on your face like that guy in the video did?
How do you think I've got this tan? How do you think I keep the skin the way
Maybe
it
I
is?
need to do that. If you're listening, you won't be able to see. I look like a sheet of paper. I actually am the same color as Matt's t-shirt right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Well, we definitely do have different skin tones.
Flattering.
Speaking of Matt, Trumpets. How's it going, mate? You all right? People can follow you where?
At MattPT55 on just about any social media you care to mention.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be playing, if you're in upstate-ish New York, at the Falcon in Marlboro this Friday night at 7. So come check out the Scott Orchestra. It'll be the usual good time.
And if you're someone who supports podcasts monetarily because you believe that independent podcasts should be able to compete in the space and you don't want an environment where you only have the big money, well-supported mainstream media podcasts in that space, they're great. But if you want Missed Apex podcast and others that I can't remember the name of to thrive in the space, then Patreon is the best place to support us. Patreon.com/Missed Apex. Duck in and out. You can sign up for $5 a month, join our Discord, have an ad-free feed, but mostly get the warm, fluffy feeling that me and Matt kind of get to do this as a job. And I think we're the only independent host-owned F1 podcast that is able to do that, and that is because of you. So go and follow my panel, Antonia Rankin. Go and follow Matt Trumpets, and follow me. I'm the best one. Follow me at Spanners Ready. Until we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. You can leave Patreon at any time. I mean, if you forget, I'll remind you. I'll totally remind you. If you were meaning to only be there for like 3 or 4 weeks to try it out, I'll be like, hey, Derek, like, you remember to sign off for the Patreon. Don't worry, Matt.